Okay, guys, welcome along to Monday in America, Monday around the world, or Sunday?
Sunday.
Sunday. Sunday there, Monday here. It's all relative. Anyway, welcome along to this last class in the four opponents, application of four opponent powers in daily life. So let's begin, as we normally do, by doing a short breathing meditation. And then we'll take refuge together and generate a mind of enlightenment together. So please get comfortable in your seats. So adjust your posture, whichever way feels right for you. Have your back nice and straight and your shoulders relaxed. And you can tuck your chin in ever so slightly. And allow yourself to breathe normally and naturally. And as you breathe normally and naturally, become aware of the expansion and contraction of your chest or abdomen. And this will help you to focus the mind. And as you're breathing normally and naturally, imagine that in the space in front of you appears Shakyamuni Buddha and his spiritual entourage. These beings of light include your spiritual teachers, the Bodhisattvas, the Arahats and protectors. And then think that surrounding you are all sentient beings, which include your parents, other family members, people you've had misunderstandings and difficulties with, and strangers. Then recollect what you have in common with all the people surrounding you. Each of us has a wish to be happy. Each of us has the wish to be free from suffering. And for all of us, we haven't achieved either of these goals fully. Many of the things we do to accomplish our happiness turn into tragedies of all sorts. When we try to escape from suffering, we seem to push ourselves further into it. But there is a way to accomplish our purpose. And by doing so, we can also help others do the same. And that is to rely upon the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, the teachers, and the lineage. So think that you want to bring about perfect, long-lasting, stable happiness for yourself. Oh, gosh. And to help others do the same. So the Buddha's in front of you and the spiritual entourage. Decide to take refuge in them and to develop a mind of enlightenment. So reciting along with me, I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. So then, in response to your aspiration, think that lights and nectars pour out of the heart of the Buddha and wash over you. Removing every hindrance to your goal and filling the mind with all good qualities. Being free of every form of obscuration and empowered with every good quality, recollect all sentient beings and develop the four immeasurable thoughts in dependence upon them. And going along with this thought that all beings abide in immeasurable love, compassion, joy, and equanimity, take on the responsibility of placing them in those states by teaching them how to accomplish those four immeasurable states. Again, imagine lights and nectars washing over you, establishing yourself and every other being within the four immeasurable states. And being in front of this refuge field, I'll recite along with me. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginning this time, and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. I dedicate my own and others' merits to the great enlightenment. And just in case we have any residual clinging to ourselves and to the merit we've created, recollect emptiness. The fact that things have no objective existence but exist dependently upon their causes, conditions, parts, and mind. Transform your body into a wonderful pure land whereby you can give teachings to others in the near future and offer this to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, saying, this ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Guratna Manalakam Nayatayami. The offering has been released, it's been accepted by the Buddha, and he smiles at us with delight. And we look up into his eyes, and we feel accepted and at ease. And now an emanation of the Buddha leaves his heart, moves through space, and comes to abide above the crown of your head. It descends, entering the crown of your head and traveling down through your body to stop at the level of your heart, whereby its light begins to expand, filling your body and mind with light. And the light goes out through the pores of your skin and fills the 10 directions of space. And think that wherever there are living beings inhabiting space, they have been touched by this light and fully transformed into the awakening state. And there's no difference between yourself and anyone else. Now the light begins to withdraw from the 10 directions of space and re-enters your heart. And you feel yourself embodied, sitting on the seat you're in, and you're breathing normally and naturally. And you acknowledge that this meditation has taken place on the level of imagination and has placed upon your mind an imprint for its accomplishment. And you're pleased with that. And then you breathe in deeply through your nostrils, and you exhale through your mouth, and you find yourself in the seat you're in. So let's go along now and have a look at what we've done already, and then we'll move into the actual class. So we looked at actions and their stages. So I put up this lovely picture, which is a little confronting, because it related to the last teaching we did. So we know that actions are made up of parts. And you can look at the parts, sometimes they describe them as 3 parts, 4 parts, 5, 6 parts. But whatever, no matter how many parts there are, they produce effects. There are particularly 4 effects that we became familiarized with. So there was a fruition effect, that's the effect of a rebirth. There was the environmental effect. So if you find yourself as a human being, you'll find there's an environment around you, and this is one of the effects of past actions. And there are also behavioral and experiential effects you are subject to. We've also learned that there are these effects, when they are of a negative nature, they bring about suffering. And yet in this life, we can use opponents to diminish those forms of suffering, or even get rid of them altogether. And last week, we looked at how we could use these 4 opponents in terms of anger. And so this was the picture I came up with. There's someone who says they love the other person, yet they're choking the life out of them. Right? So there's someone who doesn't know how to apply the 4 opponent powers. Now, the material I've relied upon last week and this week are these books here in particular. Now, because our class today is really dealing with how to use the 4 opponent powers against attachment, these 2 books here, Arya Deva's 400 Stanzas on the Middle Way, the book down here called Good Karma, and in Practical Ethics, Profound Emptiness. These 3, I mean, if you really want to put it into desirous attachment, it's powerful to read that. Terrific reasonings, terrific metaphors and similes. Very, very good. Now, Nectar of Manjushri's speech is the commentary on the Bodhisattva's way of life. What's it? The Joy and Courage book down here, Transforming Problems into Joy and Courage, is a commentary on the, what's it called? The 37 Practices of Bodhisattvas. Another terrific book. And Mind Training in the middle here, Geshe Tupten Jinpa translated these works, and there are a series of mind training or thought transformation texts that at present are Geshe Zopa
is giving teachings on Sundays.
So that's on YouTube, and it's on the FPMTA, so FPMT Australia website. There's the whole archive of his teachings on this entire big, fat, amazing book.
And again, a tremendous resource for us. So today we're going to have a look at this. Our outcomes today, we're going to look at how we can use these 4 opponent powers against desirous attachment while out in the world. And I'm going to sort of show you how you can do it from these 3 different perspectives. If you're a beginner on the path, it's called, the small levels of practice. If you're sort of determined to achieve liberation for yourself, you have the middling levels. And the great paths of practice, we thought, now I want to actually become a fully awakened Buddha and benefit others. Therefore, I really need to be able to take all these, the difficulties of attachment into my path and use them to transform my mind. Now, I'm going to talk to you a little about this attachment first of all, and then I'll do our next slide will actually define it. And so, attachment and anger are similar in that they have an incorrect way of perceiving the object. So we can see impure objects as pure. So we don't use the word impure here. It's really, we're talking about an object that's being accessed through an affliction and karma. So we see these impure objects as pure, or impermanent objects as permanent, or objects with a suffering nature to have the nature of being pleasant. And it's through our own ignorance that we impute the characteristics onto the object. So we're superimposing qualities on the object that then come back at us. It's like we're unaware we're actually doing it. So now it seems that the object has the qualities. Do you guys, is that okay for you? Do you guys understand that? What I'm saying here? Okay. So we superimpose attractive qualities that are not truly there. So this is what I mean when we say they're not truly there. It means that if you actually investigate the object, you don't find the qualities there.
Eddie, is that why I can be very excited about a pair of shoes and somebody else can just go, huh, what? They'll just hurt your feet?
Yeah, that's one of the, and that's how you can sort of know that, these qualities, we don't all see, all these good qualities are in the shoes. Somebody's going, no, they're not. I don't like them at all. But either way, if you look for if you go to say, well, let's just look at the shoes and see if these good qualities are there. They're not objectively, they're not found as objects.
Mm-hmm.
These qualities are really from the subjective awareness. They're coming back from us. And we are describing the phenomena, giving them these qualities, imputing them, and then thinking that they're actually there in the object.
Yeah. I was just remembering there's a march that you do in Australia here, walk a mile in their shoes, and so it's where all the guys dress up and wear high heels and walk for 1 kilometer, and like they're in agony at the end. But of course, this is like women just pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for all of these high-heeled shoes. But it's really clearly points out joy is not in the shoes. In fact, it seems like it's the other way around.
So this way of describing attachment is what we're really talking about. We're talking about seeing it as a what do you call it? An afflictive state of mind. But I just want to say to you now, this is not the only way they use the word attachment in the Tibetan texts. It's one way, it's the major way. When they talk about these afflictions, this is what's going on.
but some of you might have come across terms where they say the Buddhas are attached to sentient beings. Bodhisattvas are attached to sentient beings. So if you read it like that, then you don't take the previous meaning. Now it has a different meaning. The context has changed. So there's when that comes across, I think it's only a couple of times you'll find them in text. Nagarjuna in particular uses this expression, but it basically means that they are attached. It means they have this great care, a great care for sentient beings. So this is more like how we used to use the word attachment in normal speech, isn't it? If people haven't come across the Buddha's teachings, and you say attachment's a big problem, they immediately think, but I'm attached to my child and my things. What's the problem about that? I love them. So it is used like that also in the Buddhist texts. Just to let you know that these terms are really highly dependent upon the context they're used. So he says that, so this is from His Holiness's book, Samsara Nirvana. He says, the Tibetan term translated as attachment is sometimes used to indicate strong affection and care. In this case, Buddhas are attached to sentient beings, indicating that because of their strong compassion, they will never abandon sentient beings and will continuously work to lead them to temporal and ultimate happiness. This feeling of closeness and care that Buddhas have for sentient beings is very different from attachment in the minds of ordinary sentient beings. Then he also gives another example where he says, attachment might have diverse meanings in different contexts. There are different ways to be attached, for instance, to a beautiful statue of the Buddha. One person wants a beautiful statue to inspire his daily meditation practice. But another person wants the same statue to show off to his friends or to sell for a profit. So these different motivations can bring different results, and yet they're still forms of attachment. But what I want you to sort of bear in mind, though, is the first way I talked about attachment. You have an object appearing to you. You're unaware that it's filtered through your own karma and afflictive emotions. And when you engage with the object, only the good qualities are appearing to you. The negative is not there at that time. Only the good qualities. You only see good qualities. The good qualities themselves seem to be coming from the object. And not only that, but they seem to be better than what they actually are. So we've got three things there. Only the good appears. The good seems to be better than it actually is. And this good seems to be coming from the object itself. And we believe it. We grasp it that that's true. And so this is the sort of the process of this term attachment. So now we'll have a look at that, the next slide, and where we actually define it. So what is it? It is, attachment is a deluded mental factor that observes its contaminated object, regards it as a cause of happiness, and wishes to possess it. In the Lamrim Chenmo, it says attachment means noticing a pleasant or attractive external or internal object and desiring it. So there's quite a lot going on, isn't there? We can see this poor doggy, he knows about that bicky. And obviously for that little doggy, yeah, that's a really good biscuit. It's coming from the biscuit side. And we are like this to all, to, like if you said, shoes and people and food and ideas, all sorts of things. So again, just to say a few words about this. So like attachment is a mental factor based on distorted attentions that exaggerates the attractiveness of an object which is under the influence of ignorance, wishes for and takes a strong interest in it. The object could be a material object, a person, or a place, or it could be praise, or it could be an idea. So this helps us understand it. If you ask, what's the function of attachment? What's it to do? And I really like this. It says, attachment functions to produce discontent and to perpetuate the cycle of existence. So in other words, we were doing it, but there's different ways of talking about this cycle of existence called samsara. It means in a way like it'll keep you in. And as you know, samsara is one of the qualities is just uncertain what you're going to experience within it. But what you can be assured, you will experience suffering. What's uncertain is what type. So samsara is like up and down and round and round. And this thing like keeps you in. So I'm telling you this, I'm reminded of a thing that happened to me when I was a child. So we used to have these sort of fairs and circuses that used to come to our little town. And when they came, like everyone would go because it was a small town. This was an unusual thing, and it was entertainment. So I was a really stroppy kid. I was cheeky and into making trouble. And so there was a ride there called the Octopus. Now, I don't know whether you know these rides, but they go round and round, and they've got these arms like octopus legs. And while they're going round and round, they go up and down at the same time. The operator can move them up and down. Anyway, so I'm on it, and we're about to start, and I got lippy. I got smart to the operator. Right? Boy, did I get a ride, right? And I just wanted to get off. It was like, oh, I got really scared, and I knew I couldn't get out of that bucket. Right? I had to stay on. And around me, people are like, everybody starts screaming, of course. So there's massive screaming, but there's also a lot of joy in the screaming for this ride. But I lost all my joy. And so as I talk about this, I go, oh my God, that's like attachment. You think you're going to get, it's going to be a great ride. You're going to enjoy it. But you stay on too long. Or they don't let you off, or you get too much. And then it's really horrible. So I never forgot it. And of course, I've never been lippy ever again to somebody else who has the power and the control. So Barbara, you've got your hand up. Is there something you'd like to offer?
Yeah, I just have a question, Eddie. When you gave the definition of attachment, you used the word contaminated object. Yeah. And I have a little bit of a hard time with that word contaminated, isn't it? It's just an object. It is not an object, a person, it's not contaminated. We contaminate it. Am I right? I just am having a little trouble with that word.
Sure. Okay, so if we just looked at ourselves, Barbara, right? So we're objects. We're also subjects. But if we looked at ourselves as being an object, so how did we get here as people? What was the driving force that brought us into this existence? You might say, we could say, well, it was virtue, but the virtue was contaminated because we're still in samsara. We're not free.
So what are we contaminated with? With
our afflictions and our previous actions that have kept us in cyclic existence.
I get that. So I'm gonna go back to Miffy's example of the shoes.
Yeah.
The shoes themselves are not contaminated. It's what we view or what.
we've contaminated them by seeing something impermanent as being permanent. It's like seeing that the qualities are coming from their side. Because we've got to remember there's two things going on here always with external objects. One is the object itself, which we're apprehending through our vision, for instance, or our touch. But the object we're primarily engaged with is the one we're holding in our consciousness. And that is being apprehended through the lens of an affliction and karma.
So we do the contaminating. The object
not
is
it's we,
not
but
contaminated.
the mind itself, it's contaminated.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So it is. So again, from this whole. This is from a book called Science and Philosophy in the Indian Buddhist Classics. It's volume 2, called The Mind. Another terrific book. So here it says, attachment keenly seeks to acquire something contaminated on account of conceiving it to be intrinsically attractive. Again, so intrinsically attractive means the object itself has attraction within it. It's like the attractiveness is over there. It's got very little to do with our own mind. It objectively exists, for instance. Also, upon seeing a physical body, food, clothing, jewelry, and so on as something attractive, it fixates on what was seen and does not want to be separated from it. Afflictions other than attachment are relatively easier to remove from the mind, just as by analogy, it's relatively easy to remove dirt from a dry cloth. But if you try to remove dirt from a cloth that has oil in it, it's very, very difficult. And that's the difference. Attachment's very, very hard to get rid of. The other afflictions are easier. It says, attachment, in contrast, is as difficult to remove as dirt from an oil-soaked cloth. It clings to its object and gives rise to other afflictions. Thus, attachment is a mental factor that is very difficult to remove on account of increasing one's fixation on objects of desire, intensifying longing to see, touch, and to do things with its chosen objects. So I remember another thing, we call this the realm that we are living in is the realm of desire. And we are desire realm beings. Now, if you think about it, and like how your eyes work, like, your eyes are drawn to attractive things. Your ears want to hear attractive sounds. Your nose wants to smell nice scents. Your tongue wants to taste nice things. Right? Your touch, it wants to feel attractive objects. So all of that, and then the clinging to it and the overemphasizing of them. Like so when I read that, oh man, no wonder they call this the desire realm. So yeah, like this could be a useful thing for you to do, right? Look around in your room, just find anything that you really like and gaze at it and just ask yourself, the thing that I really like about this object doesn't seem to me to be coming from the object. Does the object itself seem to hold those qualities that I really appreciate and like? And if you do, and you're honest about it, you have to answer, yeah. Like, you'll say, that's a great picture I've got. I love this couch because these things, right? You'll say that, and you look and you go, oh my gosh, what I've just said, like I'm saying, like it's like it's over there. And so when it's like that, then we don't want to be separated from them. Then we cling to them, whether they're persons, ideas, your possessions.
But Eddie, what about if it's like our cats or dogs?
I'm sorry, Susan, say that again.
What if it's our cats or our dogs?
Yeah,
The
same thing.
qualities are coming from them. In that case, they're coming from their eyes and the way they communicate.
Could you say that again, Susan?
Coming from their expressions, their facial expressions, the ways they move, the way they look at you. You know, the qualities are coming from them.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay, so imagine that you looked at the cat and it had these great qualities, and you're looking at it and you're thinking that now bring a blind person in, and that if all those good qualities are coming off the cat, they don't have any effect on a blind person.
Or someone with a cat allergy.
That's right. Yeah.
And are we not just interpreting all those things? Are we not just putting all those things on the cat?
Yeah, well, that's what we're sort of doing, and
Well,
that's
then
right.
what
We
if
forget
it's
we're
your own
doing it, and it
child?
comes back at us, and we think it's true.
What if it's your own child?
All the objects, Susan. Yeah, all of the objects.
I mean, even with your own child, it's even more so, because you know,
They're
a
even
parent
more
thinks
precious
their
to
own
you.
child is fantastic, but no other parent thinks it about that child.
Yeah, it's like I said, it comes back to I, my, and mine. Yeah. So let's now we have a look at what we can do as using the antidotes, right? So let's go along to that now. So in terms of its fruition, it's the lower realm rebirth states. Now, I suppose as we are now as human beings, we've missed that, thank goodness, but it could come up again in the future. But we have these other types of results to be experienced. So in terms of the environment, our property and belongings constantly deteriorate. We can find ourselves in poorer places. And in times of cause and concordant results, our behavior is repeated. We do this again and again and again. And in terms of our experience, we have intense desire and craving, yet our ventures often fail. Our wishes are unfulfilled.
Eddie, there's a question here from Alicia that's kind of related to this. So she's asking, would it be fair to say that some qualities do come from the object or person, but we interpret or exaggerate those differently due to our attachment?
Coming from,
like that there is
you can
something
say that's
coming.
fine, but it's like from ourselves, isn't it? Like if you just put it on yourself and say, well, I have some good qualities, you can say, yep, and so does the cat, and so does the dog and the child.
But our attachment.
But the thing is like but we exaggerate them. We don't see them as they actually are. And you know, the other thing is the good qualities don't objectively exist. So in other words, it's very, very difficult as ordinary sentient beings to determine the exact measure of those good qualities. So it's not that there's none there, but whatever is there, we're sort of reifying them, giving an objective appearance. And that's another mistake.
And Eddie, can you just elaborate a little bit more on the behavior and the experience, these results of?
Well, the behavior is pretty much, I mean, all of us find this, we do this. Like, for instance, if you've ever been in love and then your heart's broken, right? You go ahead and you do it again, right? You go and look for another person. And again, the same process. You think, oh, the great qualities are there. And I'm really attracted to them. And this person, you'll only see the good qualities at that time. They will appear to be coming from the object. And the person, the object, will appear to be better than what they actually are. And so we re-engage and we're disappointed again because the mind itself is false. The person could well have good qualities, but we've exaggerated them.
we think that we think we don't have anything to do with it. It's all from the other side. So that's, you keep doing that, you'll always be disappointed, and people often are, and they will be. So that's there, but in terms of, and then we find out our experience, right? So we find that we still have this intense desire, and we still have this intense craving.
Eddie, I have a question on this chart.
Yeah,
What does
sure.
the heading mean? Remorse opposing attachment.
Okay. Yep.
Does it
So
mean
we're
if
going to
you
have, we're
use
taking
remorse?
attachment as our main object to apply the 4 opponent powers to. Right? And the first opponent we're going to use is the opponent of remorse. Right? But remorse is only going to come about when you can actually look at this and go, well, these are the results of my behavior. I don't want them. So that's where the remorse is going to go, oh my gosh, it's suffering. And I've got another slide to talk about this here. So in general, we've got to be able to look at, well, these are the consequences. These are the results that I will experience if I follow desirous attachment. So when I see that these are all results of suffering, and I've experienced that suffering, then I know. I will say no to the cause, which is desirous attachment. Now, one of the, like I said before, one of the things that's really stuck with me is that when you look at the function of the afflictions, you go, so what's the purpose of an affliction? And desirous attachment is one of the major afflictions. The answer is always to cause you harm, to harm you. So like if you forget that, you'll go along with your affliction.
So in this case, with the affliction of attachment, then it's the function is to cause us dissatisfaction.
All of these harms. The function is to throw you into the lower realm rebirths in terms of you die with a mind of attachment at the very end of this life. That's the result. The environmental result as a human being is to find yourself in a very poor place where your property and belongings deteriorate or lost. We find, like you remember the student that was here, Miffy, who, his behavior just repeated itself again and again and again. Like he kept coming here to find nice women. Yeah? And he always, man, like the problems he got himself into, like one of them was willing to take him to court.
I know, it's so ironic, isn't it? You have someone think, well, a Dharma centre is mostly full of women, so beauty, this is the great place to go pick up women. But of course, it's the least likely place that women are going to be wanting to actually find yet another failed relationship. So, right. What a tragedy. It's a tragic comedy.
Yeah. And, we find ourselves thinking, we'll give it one more try. We'll try again. But the result's always the same. So in terms of these 4 opponent powers, we start off with the remorse here, but in particular, we really need to have this remorse to stop the experience. To me, if you think about it, I think that makes really good sense. It's logical. And like I said, it's not the persons and the ideas and so much. It's really the mind that we've brought to these objects. The mind is wrong. Like I said, it only shows what appears, what's appealing to you at that time, what's good about it. So I remember these times. So there's a thing that often happens when Miffy and I go shopping. Stop the share, hon. When
when Miffy and I go shopping, we have this particular mall that we go down to. It's probably one of the most expensive malls in Brisbane. And yeah, I walk along and I see something that I like and I go, wow, that's a nice pair of sunglasses. But I go in there, it's like $3,700. I go, no way, So I get, you can see straight off, I go, on one side, I don't see the price. So it all appears good to me and I want it. But as soon as you bring the price and I go, and it's not that good. So no. But if I didn't know, like I said, when I don't know the price, it all appears good. But you put this other little bit in and now it's not so good. So this is a good thing to do when you find your objects. It's like when you understand how attachment's working, you know, well, I've got to oppose it. So how's it working? You go, well, only the good things are appearing to you, Eddie. So what's not so good about it? And then you'll find now you're looking for the negative side of it, which your mind doesn't naturally do when it's attached. So any like, was it last weekend with you? Within a week ago. So Venerable Rabina was here and she was teaching us about desirous attachment. A lot of it was about desirous attachment and karma. And, she was telling us about these things. It's like, when you get married or in a relationship and you share a bed together and then one of them starts snoring or the mouth opens up and you can actually smell their breath, or they lie like spread eagle across the bed, it's like you're right on the edge, So none of those things are obvious to when you first meet the person, is it? And so what can often happen in relationships is you end up sleeping in two different beds. So this is, you can do these sort of things. Another thing is you find with attachment to any type of object, there's a misapprehension. You think the object's going to stay the same. Right? Like whatever you're in love with now, whatever's really appealing, like it's always going to be like that. And I end up, and I'll always feel this way towards it. But that doesn't happen. It's just like I said, when we began, we think, we see the impermanent objects as being permanent. And that's just
Eddie,
our own mind and the object. This
can really play tricks with us because like with children, parents will often say about their grown-up 30, 40-year-old child, but they're still my baby. So the attachment in the mind still actually sees them as a young kid, but the person's actually, fully developed adult and actually quite different from when they were a young kid.
Yeah. And do you remember that story, Miffy, this happened in Brisbane a number of years ago, where a man had gone home and he'd killed his wife and children. And it was just down the road from where we were living at the time. So the whole highway was blocked off with police cars and things like that. And, went across the news. And one of the people who heard the story went, monsters like that, men who do that, monsters, should be like killed, Those people do not deserve to live. Then she found out it was her son. Her son was the father of these children and the husband of this woman killed them. So then her mind just went, no, it couldn't have been my son. It must have been the woman. She was the one that must have caused my son to do this. So this is the mind of attachment that has an idea about her son that doesn't actually fit the facts. And that's what attachment does. It does not fit the facts. It's out of whack with reality.
Eddie, I also remember there was another incident that happened with the two new mothers in a hospital, and the babies were mixed up. And so they only found out like after a couple of days that they'd been handed the wrong babies.
Mm-hmm.
And so the story that I read was the mother, when she found out that it was the other woman's baby, experienced incredible revulsion not my baby. So for the first few days, my baby, incredible love, breastfeeding, then finding out, then she was just horrified and complete revulsion, not mine. I mean, it just do your head in.
Yeah, well, this is what Rita says, isn't it? Aversion and anger is when attachment doesn't get what it wants. And that's exactly what happens. You know, what you thought was true, you discover was false, but you don't realize that's my own mind that was doing it. The object was doing it. They're to blame. So now anger comes in. So I'm sure if you look back over your lives, you'll see this is what's happened to us. You know, we overestimated particular objects, thought we were correct about it, discovered we were wrong, but then come back and was like, oh, I was wrong. It goes, no, you were wrong. You know, the car let me down, the car broke down, or the person did this and that. Miffy.
I'm just giving you a reminder that time is going to be overing soon.
Yep. So we're going to move on right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's our next remorse opposes experience similar to the cause, but like I said before, we really need to become familiar, first of all, with the consequences of the behaviors. If we can see then that their only function is to produce suffering, then we'd be hesitant about following these types of mind. The normal term of mindfulness, we need to remember this. These types of mind, the mind of desirous attachment, and there are a lot of other minds associated with it, sometimes called greed, lust. There's actually desirous attachments like on a, what do you call it, like a spectrum? One end are really, really fierce, but then sort of played out. Now we have our next opponent power, the power of reliance, or often called refuge. And this opposes the fruitional karma of the bad rebirths, but also purifies the karma that we find ourselves in terms of our environment. Now, meaning to take refuge means to re-establish the right attitude. Right? So in this case here, we have to re-establish our understanding of what the function of desirous attachment is, and how it misleads us. And to go, no, I'm not following that thought. That's just false. So we place ourselves in the safe direction, where, like, for instance, if we find like attractive something, we could remember, oh, it's not permanent, it is subject to change. I still like it, but it's subject to change, and even my own mind might change about it. I'll still get it, but we're not letting desirous attachment push us into getting it with these false ideas. Now, okay, so when we go out into the world, so we've left our household, we're out there in the world, right? So we need to have the right attitude. We need to understand how desirous attachment functions, how it works, and know that when desirous attachment is working, we have to know it's working, right? It's going on right now. And like I was saying, a very simple thing you can do is just look at the objects that you find desirable and just ask yourself these questions. Am I seeing anything of a negative nature about this? You go, no, that's desirous attachment, right? It's working. Does all the good qualities seem to come from the object? Yep, that's desirous attachment is at work here. Does it seem to me as if this object's never going to change? It's going to give me the pleasure that I'm experiencing now? If you say yes, desirous attachment is working. So in other words, we were bringing into our personal mental space, our awareness, our understanding of how this afflictive mental state works, and we're not going to buy into it. That's how we take refuge here. Because, remember, refuge means working in alignment with the teachings, with the Buddha's teachings on karmic cause and effect. And so one of the great things that teachings of karmic cause and effect is that afflictions cause us problems, harm. And desirous attachment is an afflictive mental state.
Eddie, I have a question on that. Is
Sure,
it
Susan.
possible to look at that image of the Buddha, which is really quite beautiful, and
Yeah.
feel desirous attachment for it because of the good that it represents?
Well, there's a couple of different answers on this. So one is, in a way, we can't overestimate the good qualities of a Buddha. So that's one thing, nice to remember. The other thing is, while we are under the influence of the afflictive emotions, and we do have desirous attachment, then please aim it at objects like the Buddha, right? Because it's still involved with a mistaken apprehension, but the results are good. So I remember Rabina saying this, wasn't it, when she found out about the benefits of being reborn in the pure land of Sukhavati. She says, "Yeah, so if I'm going to die, that's I'm going to and I'll be attached to it, but the outcome's great." Yeah, I am overestimating. I'm not overestimating. I'm misapprehending how it actually exists. All the good qualities do seem to be coming from Sukhavati itself. That's true. Nevertheless, it's a great thing to go for. Yeah. So when we look at the Buddha like this, Susan, one of the things, like it obviously appears to us like, wow, all the good qualities are coming from the Buddha. But that's not true. We play a part in this. In fact, I remember a lovely teaching where an elderly woman was talking to the Lama. She was really suffering, and he sort of held her hands and helped her. And then she said to him, "Oh, thank you so much, Rinpoche. Wonderful what you did." And then he went, "Not me, dear, you." And like, "What do you mean? Your mind, your mind played a part in this. Don't ever forget your own mind." Right, so she was seeing all the goodness and the virtue coming from the Lama, but he had to remind her, no, but your virtue. Without you having virtue itself, you never apprehend me as being a virtuous person. So please acknowledge your own goodness. Okay. So we can rely upon these sort of things, right, to stop, especially the mind of enlightenment is terrific here. But we have the 3 Buddha jewels and the 4 seals. So like I said, so with the 4 seals, that all compounded phenomena are impermanent. So whatever the object is, you realize it's subject to change. The object is subject to change, and so is your mind. Your mind could actually change. So all contaminated phenomena are unsatisfactory. So remember, we are unenlightened beings, so we're seeing these objects through the lens of our own consciousness, our own awareness, and these have been tainted with the ignorance of grasping at phenomena to truly exist, and all the behaviors that have gone along with that. In fact, these objects seem to exist objectively and have the qualities inherent to them, are in fact empty of that. This helps a great deal. We need to, in terms of the inner Sangha, we have some good qualities already. We need to rely upon them. Right? So we can rely upon what we already have as the good qualities. Our inner Dharma is like work in alignment with the teachings of karmic cause and effect. We understand that the afflictions and karma have some part to play in me apprehending everything or this object to be beautiful from its own side. And you have the potential to do this. We all have the potential. So we have this inner Buddha, the Buddha nature. We have that. So we should apply it. Now, one of the things that most people have great desirous attachment towards is other people. So I found this being a very useful thing to remember. Is the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas both possess unclouded vision, seeing everything. Everything lies open to their gaze. And likewise, I am always in their presence. One who has such thoughts as these will gain devotion and a sense of fear and shame. For such a one, the memory of Buddha arises frequently before the mind. So what it's sort of saying is that when you're out in the world and you want to follow this mind of attachment, remind yourself, right? It's not that no one's looking. Buddha sees everything. The Bodhisattvas, your behaviors are open to their gaze. So use that understanding to help you to restrain yourself from following desirous attachment. Like especially when it has to do with other people and the whole idea of their happiness escaping your mind, and what's really present to your mind is my happiness.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What's so nice about this, Eddie, is that thinking that we're always in the presence of the Buddhas, it's like having a witness, but not a judgmental one. Because normally when we try and stop ourselves following an afflictive mind, we're really, we beat ourselves up, we're really judgmental, we're not very encouraging. It's not necessarily with a thought of love, it might be with frustration. Whereas this, it's actually, even though the Buddha sees everything about my life, still the Buddha loves me.
Yeah, that's right. That's what we've got to remember. Still, I'm held in the gaze of compassion and love. It's not a judgmental guilt type trip here. So now we have the remedial action. So this is, we're going to talk about, small scope, middle scope, and great scope. So we're trying to do anything to work against desirous attachment. So one of the great things we have desirous attachment to is our reputation and wealth. So here, when we make offerings to others, that is getting at that overestimation of who we are and what wealth can do for us. So in terms of the small scope remedial actions, appreciate your potential. So we have this potential, as you all know, to become fully awake beings, enlightened beings. We can also liberate ourselves from cyclic existence altogether, but to do that, we've got to rid ourselves of desirous attachment. Desirous attachment keeps us in samsara. With it, we can't achieve liberation or enlightenment. And like I said, as I said last week, like when you have the thoughts of desirous attachment, like I do myself, I think, remember you're like this, a precious vessel, jeweled vessel, and you're filling your mind with vomit, with just crap. Don't do it. It'll hurt you. It doesn't, like I said, the only purpose and function of an affliction is to hurt you. Impermanence, your own mind might even change in relationship with the object itself will change. And look, this could take place at any time, and your death is we don't know when it's going to happen. We do not want to die with a mind under the control of an affliction. You want to be free from desirous attachment, free from anger, free from all of them. And there is a way to bring about that freedom. Now we can use wisdom realizing emptiness or any other method. So we're going to look at some of these. Like I said, these are all parts of the method. So the Aranagajuna says, seeing that you will definitely die and that when dead, you suffer from negativity, do not engage in any negativity, even for the sake of temporary pleasures. But this is what we normally do, isn't it? I mean, so I thought, well, I'll put this quote up because I think it's a really good one, because we actually do engage, we do let desirous attachment, we give it free rein for the sake of temporary pleasure.
And Eddie, that's pretty much because at the time that it's happening, we're not aware that it's temporary pleasure.
No. And the thing is, it feels good, right? We often mistake a mind being excited and being distracted as a good thing, likable thing.
Mm.
And as we know this, it's temporary. You keep it up, it's wearisome.
Eddie, this quote also reminds me of that study about the kids and the cookie, you know, of the longitudinal study. And I always just think, oh my God, I would have been one of those kids that wasn't able to restrain themselves from having the cookie now and 10 cookies later. I just would have gone for the cookie straight away. But in that study, it didn't even matter like what socioeconomic background you came from originally. When they tracked everybody, the ones that could actually defer the gratification and distract themselves from having the cookie that moment, just overall did better in life, better health, better marriage outcomes.
Yeah.
And the ones that just took the cookie straight away, not so good.
Yeah, that's right. So these are results just in one life. And as you know, the Buddha Dharma is talking about not just this life, but other lives as well.
Yeah.
So the principle just carries across.
So really, it's just a matter of education to kind of remind yourself that, yes, temporary pleasure, but not long-term pleasure.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So now we come to the middle scope. And again, the remedial actions are, look, agency means, it's up to us. It's up to us. Each one of us has this responsibility to themselves, to others, and to the world to tackle these mental problems, these ways of the mind working. No one else can do it for us. No one else can stop us having desirous attachment. It's up to us. But like I said before, you'll only want to do this if you can actually see how problematic it is for us. And it's just like the example which we gave before of the biscuits. You follow it, long-term harm. Short-term benefit, tastes nice, you've got to taste right now, true. And then problem. So like, have a sense of distaste for that. Barbara, you're going to ask something, say something?
I was just going to interject something that a term that really resonated with me that Venerable Rabina uses all the time is the term honey-covered razor blade.
Yep, that's right. Yep.
Boy, is that descriptive for me.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. There's a great metaphor or simile for desirous attachment. Like the honey actually does taste nice. But you better be really careful when you look it up.
Yeah, the honey tastes nice, and we always think, but I'll be different from everybody else. I'll be able to get away with it.
That's right. Yeah. So like this sense of this, so this is also, this idea, I like this word distaste, because if you're a bit like me, you've tried a few times to be happy following the mind of desirous attachment. You always end up disappointed, right? This is how it is. You don't get what you want. It only looked good, but it wasn't anything like what you thought it would be like.
But Eddie, this is also a bit tricky because before we've got the object, we have that sense of anticipation, and anticipation can feel kind of good, you know, not for too long, but there's kind of an excitement. And so we have a real, well, at least I do, I have a resistance to trying to remind myself about the flaws of the object. I don't want to know about them. I just want to think about all the good things.
Yeah, of course.
So,
of course.
to even think about, oh, well, what's the drawbacks here, or what is it not going to work with it, or whatever, to develop that sense of distaste. I have a real resistance to even thinking in that way. That's
of course, and most people do. The vast majority of people do. And that's why I love that other metaphor or simile that the Buddha took. He says, you know, my teachings go against the stream. I think that's true. That's exactly right. They do. So like this now, we have these 5 different purifiers for attachment. So remember that the pain, like you say, with the razor blade and the honey, right? Pain within your own and others' continuum. So meditate on the fear, become more and more familiar with, although attachment feels like a positive mental state. I love the excitement, and that's where most of it is actually, in the excitement, not when you get the object, but the excitement driving it. It's actually suffering. And that all beings are experiencing this in the desire realm. When you have attachment to the body of somebody or to your own, compare it to another. So the pleasant, bad activities. There's a lot of them, right? But they have these, like I said, a karmic outcome. So people might like to gamble, might like to drink, might like to have lots of relationships with different people. But there's a lot of harm going on in there, even though it feels good. So there are outcomes for all of this behavior. And to actually always remember these like impermanence. And finally, this is the one that's most put up forward, especially in the Pali tradition. Look beneath, if you have a desirous attachment for people, look beneath the skin. Right? And see what's actually there, not just what's on the surface. And you know, you can do the same sort of. I'll be able to do this with buildings. You know, like you can look at when I used to go to different cities in Australia. Like I was astonished that like we've got buildings here at least a couple of 100 years old. In Europe, of course, it's much older. But you know, you always sort of go like, wow, look at this, right? It looks amazing. And then I think, yeah, who built it? It's nearly always slaves. And the suffering that goes on to construct those buildings is immense. You know, so I try and like remind myself of that sort of thing. So I have less attachment to the building. One night, I left Ten Music Institute. We were doing a Yamantaka retreat. We left, and it was this beautiful full moon night. It actually looked blue. You know, you get those what they call a blue moon. It was like that. And I'm sitting in the car, and I go, "Wow, it's so beautiful." And as soon as I said, our car was parked up, had stopped next to a railway line. And I said, it's so beautiful. And then a train went past, had all these cattle in it going to slaughter. It's just like, you know, like you have to, like, yeah, it's not that good. Right? It's not this, it's not that beautiful. So it's a strange place, you know, this thing we call samsara, isn't it? It's like it's up and down, it's got beauty and ugliness. and they just change so rapidly.
And
So you can
Eddie,
use, like I said, these 5 ways of thinking to all sorts of objects.
this one with the contemplation of the ugliness, like thinking about what's inside the body, it's actually our attachment to the packaging that's so shocked when we think about what's inside that we go all the way the other extreme and look at it as, you know, ugly and putrefaction and whatever. But actually, if we didn't have attachment in our mind, we'd look at what's inside the human body and go, wow, look how it all works. It keeps me alive. It does everything. I don't even have to tell my lungs to breathe or my stomach to digest, you know, it all works. How amazing. So why do we even look at it as yucky when it is so amazing?
Yeah, so like the flip side of that, of course, is like when we watch these shows at home, like I can't bear to look at that stuff. Right? Especially when people have accidents, you know, I'm looking at the blood and the gore, I go, oh, I can't, my legs go all funny. And just go, there you go, that's the aversion side of it. It's the flip side. I don't want to see that. I want to see the nice unbroken skin, please. That's how it works. Yeah. Yeah, so this material here came out of the Lamrim Chenmo. And I'd never come across it before, but one of our students, we were talking about having desirous attachment at the time of death, and she said, what if I have desirous attachment for my jar? I know I have attachment to this beautiful jar I've bought. And then I remembered stories of Rabina telling us stories about monks who had died with desirous attachment to their thermos flask. Really bad outcomes. So it's like, how do you use, you know, the contemplation of ugliness to help you with that?
So Eddie,
you don't need to. There's other things you can use.
There's this second one of unpleasantness in relation to something else. Then one of the lamas was saying, you know, like the hamburgers are better in Tashita. The food is better in Tashita than it is on Earth. Right. So
yeah, if you're gonna have attachment, think about that. That's right.
The tea is better in Tashita.
So when we come to the great scope, so when we have like attachment to others, desirous attachment, and which generates lust, and we want to have the bodies of the others, right? So they have a different type of meditation of doing it. The Pali look at beneath the skin. In the Mahayana, what you can do is look at them as being your relations. So if they're younger than you, you look at them as your children that you wish to care for. And if they're older than you, look at them as if they were your parents. And they're infirm and you want to look after them. And if they're the same age as you, as your brothers and sisters. And you understand that what they actually need is to be happy. You know, they don't need me to come along and with my desirous attachment and my lust try to possess them and hold them and use them for, you know, to make me happy. That's not going to help them. The other way you can look at it as being as, maybe it was Susan, but somebody else said something about like seeing them as your teacher, right? And respecting them as being a teacher. Like a child can teach us things, your brothers and sisters can, young people can, older people can, everyone can teach you something. And the last one is the Tonglen. So this is quite effective, actually. So, you know, like, so when you actually feel desire, this desirous attachment, it is towards something that you think is really, that you want to possess. But we know that desirous attachment is a mental affliction, and its only function is to create suffering. So we accept it. And the idea is going, oh, great, I've got suffering right now. That's great. Don't even need to think of it. What do others need? And in your imagination, give them everything they need. So we don't need to oppose it. We just need to accept it, that I actually feel this way, but don't go grabbing, go giving. In terms of the reasoning you can use, when you have attachment to others, remember you're only seeing their good qualities, you think how desirable they are and so forth. But, remember, it's oh, this person in past lives has harmed me and hurt me. In fact, they've been a stranger to me and they've been an enemy. Right? So we can use that type of reasoning coming from the Bodhisattva's way of life to help us too. It's like getting the bigger picture rather than just seeing the person there right now and thinking, wow, they're so wonderful. So again, this is the slide we had last week about the giving and taking. We ask that all these karmic debts, obstacles, and sufferings of mother beings ripen upon us. And like I said, when you have it, you got it. So may I give all my happiness away. Give those things that others desire in your imagination. Give them to others. That syllable remember? From last week, we just go, don't buy in yet. Go, It's not the way it looks. Being the negation. So it's a not. Yeah. Not inherently desirable, not inherently attractive. Put a pause there. Bring your reasoning in, bring in whatever you can, and just remember about Dharma and put it to work. And this, I love this, especially with women. For me, it's like if you feel as though if you love women or if you love men, you love something, remind yourself, wow, it's just like an illusion. Like I'm actually seeing it. It's right there in front of me, like illusions are, but they don't actually have the qualities that I think they do. And the qualities they have, they're not like that as I think they are. So, one of the most common illusions is to see water in palm trees where there isn't any. So it actually looks like it's there, but in fact it's not. I used to think when I was much younger, I chased women. I used to think there was a beautiful woman inside them, like behind their face, and inside their skin somewhere there was this wonderful woman, and I just had to find her, and get together, and I'll be happy. And I remember this thing going, like, it's not working. And the Buddha Dharma goes, yeah, that's that person there, Eddie. And you go, oh my God, thank you. Thank you. That was just a wrong idea I had. And that's what desirous attachment is, just a wrong idea we've got. So it was much easier by the time I met Miffy. I didn't have that idea then. So these appearances can clear away these extremes. That's the great thing. It really is. You can really challenge your own ideas. It's terrific. We need something to work with. So these are the appearances. So emptiness clears away the extreme of non-existence. There's an actual person there. We understand how emptiness shows itself as cause and effect, cause and result. You won't be so enthralled by these extreme views.
Eddie, this means that we really have to have this conversation with ourselves.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
I mean, Venerable Rabina, when she was here on the weekend, kept on saying about, we argue with our assumptions and our projections. So it actually means talking about it in our head, actually questioning what is it that we're attracted to, where is it, is it an exaggeration, what's the drawbacks, all of those things. You have to really be quite active having this conversation. I mean,
when we as we are, we're engaging in the Dharma, right? So right now we're listening to it. And then we have to, think about these things, look back over your experiences and go, oh my God, that's exactly what I did. That's exactly what happened. Right? So we have to affirm what we've heard and thought about it. And then we need to become familiar with it, with this knowledge. Right? And now what's going to happen, you're going to go out into the world and all these appearances are going to come at you. And you have to remember all this stuff, right? Or maybe it's, you've got it down deep enough to know these appearances are deceptive. Nevertheless, like I said, we're going to have these objects of beauty are going to appear to us, and it's all going to look coming from its own side and so forth, and we're going to have a thought about it. So your thing is to know, actually, what am I thinking when I come into contact with these objects of beauty, with these objects that I can generate desirous attachment towards? And when you have these thoughts, ask yourself this really simple question: is this thought useful? You just ask that. You'll know pretty quickly whether it is or not, right? And that'll stop it right there. So we have to sort of this resolve, right? So we have to not engage. We must not follow the mind of desirous attachment and do what we've done in the past, like try and possess these objects, holding on to them. And like I said at the beginning, having the mind sort of stuck in them. We can do this if we're certain that our behaviors are going to harm us and others. Harm us now, harm us in the future. It's just like you said about the lollies, the marshmallows, the biscuits.
Yeah, so we've got to convince ourselves.
We've got to convince ourselves. Short term, like and the honey on the razor blade. Yes, it feels nice, and that's it. Basically, it's downhill after that. So we've got to sort of, convince ourselves this is the case. Have these chats to ourselves over the kitchen table. Find other people who might have similar interests. Talk to them about past experiences. Tie it in with the Dharma that we know now, and draw some sort of conclusion. So I love this quote. If you are attached to this life, you're not a person of Dharma. If you are attached to cyclic existence, you don't have renunciation. If you are attached to your own purpose, you don't have bodhicitta. And if grasping arises, which is another form of attachment, you do not have the view. So when I first said this was incredibly shocking to me. When I first said this, like you just, go, oh my God, I got all of it. That's me. That's not so bad to know. In fact, it's better for us to know it than not know it. And now we can go, okay, now I can start to do work. Now the work begins. And that's exactly what they say is that once you take refuge in the 3 jewels, now the work begins. We've committed ourselves. We know the other way didn't work.
So,
I've heard what you've said, Buddha. I've heard what you said, my teacher. I've been thinking about this. It makes sense to me.
Eddie, Alicia's just said, uh-oh, I don't pass any of those. And I had a big uh-oh moment as well. It is shocking, but it's good shocking.
Yeah, what I love about it is it stops the fooling. It stops us fooling ourselves. It makes you honest. That's what I like about it. Actually, when this great master gave this teaching, like I never forget it, because there's all these people crying. And I thought that's the right response, because this is us. All these people, suddenly you realize, oh my God, I'm not actually a Dharma person. I thought I was. I mean, I took refuge and all, but my God, this is me. So here I wanted to put this in just to show you how this attachment, how pervasive it is, and what it can do to us. So knowing something like this, we can now work against it. So what's our takeaway today? We know there are 4 opponent powers. I hope these never slip your mind. And you know that you can apply them to any type of unskillful behavior, whether it's desirous attachment, whether they're rooted in aversion, hatred, or any of the other multitudes that come out of these 2. So before we go, we're a little bit over, but is there any questions anybody would like to ask, or is there anything anyone would like to volunteer before we dedicate? Okay, well, I do hope it supports your practice of Dharma and it gives you something to think about, that's for sure. And then, you make a decision because it's up to each one of us. It's just up to us, isn't it? We have to decide. Okay, so let's dedicate the merit then that we've created through. So we have another course coming up. I think it's next week. I'll begin with the Heart Sutra, and let's dedicate now our merits. So thinking, we've paid attention to this, and we've definitely been thinking about it. That's meritorious. Let's dedicate our merits. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel, bodhicitta, not yet born, arise and grow, and may that born have no decline but increase forevermore. And as long as space endures and as long as sentient beings abide, may I too remain to dispel the sorrows of the world. So just say thank you again, everyone. It makes my life meaningful and useful to study and talk about this material and to share it with with you. So thanks, and let's stay alive to next week and a bit longer too, and do good. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone, and we'll see you again the next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.